There are more demonstrations in Iran today, this time outside a prison, where authorities will reportedly execute 2 anti-government protesters. 2 demonstrators were also hanged this past Saturday. Let's bring in reporter Rebecca Collard, who's tracking all these developments for us in Berlin. So, Rebecca, tell us about these latest protests.
Yeah, so Hannah, overnight, pictures and video began to emerge of what appears to be a protest outside of this prison in Karaj. And the protesters there believe that there are these 2 men inside the prison who they believe are at imminent risk of being executed. One of the videos even shows what's believed to be the mother of one of these prisoners, like pleading for her son's life, pleading for clemency for her son. Now, I will say, Hannah, it's very difficult for us to confirm these images that are posted on social media. But what I can say is, since the execution of these 2 young men over the weekend, these 2 protesters, fears are really rising for the other protesters that have already been convicted and sentenced to death by the Iranian regime, and also the thousands more that have been convicted by that are in prison in Iranian state custody and are awaiting trials. Now, the concern by rights groups has been that in many of these cases, they say that Iranian prisoners are forced into confessions through torture or threats, and then those confessions are used in what Amnesty International has called sham trials to convict protesters. So, fear is really rising for the thousands of protesters that are in Iranian state custody.
And Rebecca, we mentioned that 2 protesters were hanged this past Saturday. How is the international community reacting to those executions?
Yeah, we've really seen a wave of condemnation today, Hannah. The EU has just summoned the Iranian ambassador. The UK earlier called its the top Iranian diplomat in that country here in Germany as well. The foreign minister saying she has summoned the Iranian ambassador here. And of course, Canada this morning announcing more sanctions on Iranian entities and on Iranian individuals. Now, I think the thing that is a bit scary, Hannah, is the fact that this is not the first condemnation of Iran's crackdown on protests. It is not the first condemnation of executions by the international community. And those condemnations and those sanctions do not appear to be affecting the behavior of the Iranian government. The repression continues. Today, a semi-official news agency announced that 3 more protesters were sentenced to death. And I think because of that, Hannah, of course, more fears are rising for the protesters that have already been sentenced to death, for those that are in custody of the Iranian regime. And I think the question is, Iranian activists, both inside and outside the country, have been calling for a stronger reaction from the international community. And I think it really begs the question: what would be effective to change the behavior of Iran's government in regards to these protests, because it doesn't appear that international condemnation or sanctions have had much of effect at all, Hannah.
Yeah. Okay, Rebecca Collard in Berlin, thank you for your reporting.